want to show you something that I love about using the StarCraft Solo Create software. By going to my documents and then my StarCraft folder, I see all these other subfolders. If I click on my designs, this is where I've started to make my own subfolders for different SVGs that I have. So for example, here's the way I used to store my SVGs. And I have one called camping. So I can go over here in my designs and just right click and say new folder and call it camping. So now I can click in the camping one and I can start to drag over my SVG files. And now the next time I open up my Create software, those SVG files will already be loaded in the library. This is another nice thing. Since those were my only two, I could actually delete this folder from my old storage system. So once I transfer all of these over into my Create software, I could actually delete all of these, thus saving space on my computer. All right, so now I've shown you how you can organize them. Let's move on to this project. Because my StarCraft Solo Create software allows me to organize my SVG files into subfolders, I can now click on the library and then go to My Designs, and I made one called Sports. And I click on that and I can expand that, and there's one called Running. And that's where I put the SVG for this project. So I can just click on that and it drops it right in. It made it kind of big. And I know there's a lot of charts out there for sizing, but what I did, this is going on a shirt for my husband. I went in his closet and just grabbed a shirt that I know he likes and measured that design for sizing. And I did this, I measured a couple so that I could kind of take an average, so it's not too small, too big. So this is what I end up with for my design. Now, because I always forget to mirror my projects when I'm doing them from iron-on vinyl, I'm going to flip horizontally right from the get-go. That makes sure that everything's flipped and mirrored. So I'm going to go Create, and there is a mirror button here, but again, I always forget to click this one, so I just like to flip it here. Then what I'm going to do is go here, and I have already preset up my settings that I like to use for pressure, speed, and force for Siser EasyWeed vinyl. And if you want to add a new preset, you can hit this plus button and you can type in your special setting. That's really nice because then when you're using the same product over and over again, and once you find that sweet spot of where you want to cut it, it will always cut the same. So then I want to show you this little cut by color button. So you can see the full rainbow here. What I'm going to do is turn them off, and then I'm going to just turn them on one color at a time. And you can see on this preview, it's putting it in the lower right corner. So when I load my mat, I'm going to set up my blade so it's in the lower right corner. And then I'm going to come back here and hit Create. As soon as I hit Create, it's going to start cutting. Then as I load each color, I will just turn on that color from this list. When I load my mat into my Solo, I like to line up the front edge of the mat with this kind of crease line and then lock things in place. Then I can use the arrows on the touchscreen to move the blade wherever I want it. And you can see when I press that button, it moves at just one little click at a time. And then I always like to kind of press down to see, yep, that is touching right in the corner. So I'm ready for cutting. Next, I'm going to click the create button on my computer and it just starts cutting. You will notice I'm still using some Cricut mats. I had a stash and I bought a lot of them. They will work with your solo machine, so you can feel free to use those. Then when it's done cutting, you saw that I just unlocked it in the back so I could pull that sheet out. And now we're going to look real close. You can see the cut right there. And we'll load the next color and cut that. I do recommend having some of your first projects with your solo be vinyl projects because when you're setting up your blade depth, vinyl is a very thin product. So your blade barely needs to be poking out of the blade housing. So getting your settings for vinyl seems to be the easiest. And once you've mastered that, start an Excel spreadsheet with your settings for force and speed. I'm going to drop some links in the description of this video. One of them is for the blade exposure guide that I found online. And for me, it was really helpful because getting that blade exposure is really crucial to getting great cuts with your StarCraft Solo. And again, since vinyl is so thin, it's really great that you can set up this exposure, blade exposure guide on your blade housing and set that up for the lowest number being vinyl. And then as you get on to dealing with thicker material, you can just keep turning the dial numbers up from there. I am not going to bore you with having you watch me cut each individual color. So once everything is cut, you're going to go and weed your vinyl. I like to start in a corner and just kind of pull with my weeding tool to get something started that I can grab onto and then just peel it back. So I am using Siser EasyWeed for this project and I've used a lot of different brands of vinyl and I love the Siser brand. It's basically my go-to vinyl. And I will drop in the description below all the different colors I used if you want to use the exact same colors. But honestly, you could do this project with any colors you want. Make it a rainbow kind of effect or do like all shades of your favorite color and kind of a gradation kind of look, whatever you want to do. And you'll see when you're using the Caesar, there is a clear carrier sheet. And I think that is great for projects like this, where then you can line things up even better because you can see through that carrier sheet. Now that everything is cut and weeded, it's time to press. I am placing the longest piece on the shirt first because it's going to help me center my design even better. Then I'm putting a piece of parchment paper over the top, and then I'm going to lock it down into my heat press. My heat press is by Planet Flame. I'm going to only press this for about 8 to 10 seconds at just over 300 degrees. And that is because I'm going to be doing a lot of colored layers in this design. And I do not want to overheat the first color when I'm adding the next two colors. So now with this press, you can see I've placed the color that's both above and below that center line. This is where that clear carrier sheet was really helpful because I could see through it to line things up. And also, since the carrier sheet from the very top layer I'm pressing to the very bottom layer in this design aren't overlapping, that's why I can press them both at the same time. Again, I'm only going to press for about 8 to 10 seconds, and that is because I am going to be pressing more colors, and I don't want to be overheating that first layer that I put on there while pressing the second and third. Once I take it out of the press and peel off the carrier sheet, I do allow the shirt to completely cool down before I add in the next color layers. This helps so that you're not putting really warm vinyl back into a press and putting heat on it again. When it cools down, I find that I don't have as many chances to melt the vinyl. And that looks terrible on your shirts when you get that melted vinyl. It's all wrinkly and ew. So again, we're just going for like 8 to 10 seconds. And now this is the last press because I have both the very top and the very bottom color on here. So now I'll put the parchment sheet over and press it for the full time. Now all that's left to do is peel off the carrier sheet for those last two colors that I pressed on. I also recommend washing these inside out on gentle when you've pressed a design on it. Before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love to hear from you.